in 1979, I saw Kiss at the Cow Palace on the Dynasty tour. And, you know, right when I walked in, if anybody listens from San Fran and used to go to the Cow Palace, the way it worked was you'd go through these front doors. There was about 10 doors, and it was just really one entrance to the Cow Palace with like about 10, 15 doors. Over the years, I'd seen people just fucking storm them. It was amazing, man. Like, you know, back then, the security was a little light. A guy would be like, ticket, and people just go, boom, and run in. And if you got by the ticket guy and through the front doors and down the ramp of the Cow Palace and just drifted immediately into the crowd, you were in, man. But my point is, the Cow Palace, walking in as a kid, walked in, gave the ticket. Mom takes me to see Kiss. Go with a buddy, Sean's. And right when we walk in, there it is, man. The merch table. And I'd never, you know, even seen a concert shirt because as we talk about on this episode, concert shirts were not something you could get like at Target or fucking, you know, Urban Outfitters or Hot Topic. None of that shit existed. You needed to go to the show and to get a shirt. And if you got that shirt, it was like a fucking medal at school the next day. I wore it. Yep, that's right. I was at Kiss and they'd be, whoa, what was it like? And I got off on that storytelling, which is probably where I am these days with podcasting and stuff, starting back into school of like, yeah, they came on, they had these outfits and they floated up from underground in these boxes. And like Gene had a cape and he flew and spit fire and blood and Ace shot shit from his guitar. And it was just, the show was monumental, but just as big to me was that merch table. And I'll never forget the first merch table. They had the shirts up. There was like 3. You always had a jersey. They always had a fucking jersey, a baseball jersey, 3/4 sleeve. And then they would have a black t-shirt. And then they would have some other funky one. And then maybe about 90% of the time, a tour book, which I always bought because you could cut it up and then hang it in your room. Which I regret now, cutting these tour books up because they're fucking fortunes on eBay. But there it was, the first shirt. I think it was $6.50, maybe $7 the shirt at the time. And my mom got it for me. And I wore that thing every fucking day to school, like a lunatic. Over and over, all day, all year, wearing this. Before this concert, I never owned a concert shirt. There was no concert shirts. It was like OP, Ocean Pacific. That was the stuff. A shirt with an OP on it. You bought it at Mervyn's. It was the first brand, you know, or Miller's Outpost. Anybody remember that place? But Mervyn's, man, my mom, we were light on paper, and we'd go down on a week before school would start, and I'd get like 2 outfits and a pair of shoes, and you know, I would have this quote unquote school clothes and then the after school clothes. And I remember I would wear bell bottoms, and I didn't have a chain guard, and it would just rip a perfect triangle out of my pants. My mom would be like, "You didn't change your school clothes." Anyway. From that day in 1979, I put on a concert shirt, and I've been wearing nothing but concert shirts to right now, 2016. And I'm 50 years old. I wear the same clothes I did from that day. Usually a flannel or some kind of leather jacket, or back then a derby jacket. You can Google that. That was big in the Bay Area. And then jeans and a shirt, sneakers or boots. It's been the same thing my entire life, and I could never really wear a suit. I respect suits. I love some bands that wear suits, but it's just not me. You know, concert shirt is what it is, and that's a a long-winded way to get to who my guest is today. My guest today has a company that has absolutely fucking blown my mind. And I've seen a lot of cool shit in my life. And I've seen a lot of people with passion, all these people with passion that make stuff by hand. Of course, they have to have passion, because to make something by hand or to be an artist, it's only about the love, you know? But my point is, my man today, Blaine Halvorson, he has a company called MADEWORN. Now, I want you to check it out. Maybe before you even start the episode, go to his Instagram and start realizing what this guy's about. Because this guy's passion is fucking next level, man. Next level. I love concert shirts. This guy is beyond. He loves them so much that he wanted to figure out a way. Instead of buying shirts these days on eBay for $300, $400, $500, and that's what these shirts go for, because they're pieces of art now. These shirts, these Iron Maiden shirts, these early Judas Priest shirts, Zeppelin, Stones, Boston, Kiss, stuff that's very rare. Early Van Halen, the Fair Warning shirt. I still own it right now. These shirts are pieces of art, and they go for big money, and they're always way too small now to wear. So this man seeked out, and fully for the passion of it, to make an ultimate reproduction of a concert shirt. And I'm not talking about these ones you see at Hot Topic or Urban Outfit. None of that. That stuff, that's fine or whatever, you know. But this is something way beyond. Those shirts at those outlet stores and stuff, they're on some kind of thick thing. They're not fitted. They look new. Of course, I don't like the new shirts. A lot of people are into beefy shirts, beefy tees, that kind of stuff. That was big in the 90s. I don't like that stuff. All my merch is printed on pretty thin shirts. Mostly because I live in California and I don't like thick shirts because they're just too fucking hot on me. And also I love how a thin shirt looks. It looks old and see-through-y and shit. That's all part of it. And I know I sound like a lunatic, but that's all part of it. An old beat-up concert shirt. So I walk into this man's compound in Hollywood and my fucking head falls off. Because when I say somebody is next level, and I'm not like sitting here like I'm some kind of a fucking a master of all things, but there is a couple things I know about, and one of them is concert shirts. When I saw this guy's concert T-shirts, I just couldn't fucking believe it. My brain, it was a sensory overload, man. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Right in front of me was the very first Kiss shirt that I ever owned. And he had a reproduction of it that looked and felt exact to the fucking shirt I bought at the Cow Palace in 1979. And I put it on, and I've had it on. I've had it on for 6 fucking days right now. I'm a lunatic, but I realize at the end of the day, you could own thousands of things, or you could own hundreds, or, multiple items. But I think at the end of the day, I am a pretty simple man. Just some good concert shirts, a good pair of jeans, a great flannel or leather, and I'm fucking happy. And I gotta remind myself that as I put on this Kiss shirt, I'm like, I'm cool with this shirt. I'll just wear it till it falls off. So I feel this is a perfect fucking guest because it combines rock and roll and handmade and passion, which I think that's everything this podcast is about to me. It's all 3 in 1, man. And this guy is fucking the man. Let's get into it with a little MADEWORN.
Hey, it's Blaine Halvorson.
Owner of MADEWORN.
Yes.
everybody knows I'm obsessed with rock concert T-shirts, and I gotta say, you have the best rock T-shirts ever to be made.
Thank you.
Now you make these rock T-shirts. My buddy Patrick turned me on to them, and I was like, "Oh my God, these are exacta vintage." How did you get into this?
I've been collecting rock tees for probably 20 years, I guess. Always been a fan of that sort of nostalgia, people taking those tees home, and started collecting because I liked, obviously you could always tell the people that loved their tees just by the amount of times they've been washed and the wear and tear and so forth. So I started, I always had this affinity to want to kind of chase and be able to sort of recreate as close to what those vintage tees were like. So, I created a company back in the day called Junk Food, which was obviously a little bit lower end, but it was, it was kind of the beginning of the whole conceptual idea of just making a vintage tee to begin with.
I remember those. They were like, they were just kind of like $20 shirts.
Yeah,
right?
They were like, you're like that 40 to 60 range. So it was like right when the stores like Hot Topic and stuff were like, they were starting to expand and get big and so forth. So we sort of, put together basically a vintage tee. Prior to that, there wasn't really that idea out there. So I wanted to have a tee that people could buy. That it's common today, but back then it was kind of a big deal. It looked like someone had worn it a lot.
Yeah.
So you could go to a retail store and buy basically a new tee that at least felt like it was a little bit older and loved and soft and so forth, and built a big license sort of grouping around that. And I think '99, I started working with the Stones and Pink Floyd and AC/DC, and then kind of expanded, obviously, from there.
How did you when you're first starting out? How do you get a hold of these people? Do you get a hold of their marketing people, or how does that work?
Yeah, this one was an odd one because I was actually in New York. Funny enough, I actually went weirdly to get my nails done at this like little place where they like gave great hand massages.
Yeah,
and I actually sat next to this gentleman named Norman Perry, who from like I think age 17, he basically had like he was like the #1 promoter in Canada. So he's who brought the Stones and Floyd and everyone there, and then went on to basically represent them. And so I sat next to him and basically kind of told him what I was doing and yada yada. Super random, two dudes in a fucking nail salon.
That's so crazy.
And anyway, that was it. Like we hit it off, and I basically signed that deal, and we kind of went from there.
You mean you tell him what you're doing, he sees it and likes it, and then you get a
yeah. A lot of those, back then, we were getting to be pretty well known, and I was getting in the licensing world
with Junk Food.
We were doing a lot of the big corporate licenses. So people knew about us. We were definitely had a lot of traction, and especially in the like better boutiques. We were like the first licensed T-shirt to get into like the Fred Segals and things of the world. So people knew at that point. So he knew of who we were.
Right. That's where I started seeing it, Fred Segal.
Yeah. And then in 2005, we took that company public, and I left in 2010. And then like 2013, I went and spent a bunch of time in Japan, and sort of had that itch to really create a much higher product, and really be more of like a pet project. Right. Of really trying to see how close I could get to really kind of knitting that old feel of what a rock tee was. Back then, most of those tees were like, it's still today. It's the mechanism hasn't really changed. Bands are buying they're basically buying the cheapest T-shirt there is in the market and printing it with the worst ink so that they get the most profit at tour. Most people probably don't want to hear that, but that's the reality of it. Right. So back then, everyone was buying these Screen Stars. There was like a handful of tees, but the bulk of the tees that people love, most of the time, if you look at the label, it's Screen Star. Yeah. It was the cheap, shitty blank.
What's weird, because that is what's so sought after, because it was thin, and it was, it
torqued, it tweaked, it did everything that like they're not supposed to do.
Yeah. I call them floaters. Yeah. Because the back would float. Yeah. Especially the bootleg ones in the parking lot.
Yeah, the seam will completely twist around to the front. That's the good stuff.
Yeah, what the fuck makes them do that, man?
It's bad. It's bad everything. Now we try, you have to, you basically work backwards. You try to recreate all that stuff. It's complex. So Japan had a lot of the old knitting machines. We went over there and spent a lot of time like basically looming different knits together to try to get that hand and feel. And then the ink was the biggest, thing.
Yeah, because they don't make that ink anymore?
Yeah, they don't, back then it was all lead-based ink. So you had the lead. Lead allowed the ink to sit on the top of the fabric. Now it's like it all goes in. So it's hard to get that kind of old. Today it's like when you print brand new ink and you just hammer it with plastisol, it just looks like a brand new shirt.
Right.
Those old shirts back then, the T-shirt's going to fall apart before the ink's ever going to break down because it's got lead.
Yeah.
But because it sat on top of the shirt, it has a different thing. That's why it kind of breaks. And
that's why it cracked up?
Heals. And so to recreate that, that was like 18 months of experimenting with like ink manufacturers and trying to figure out like what we could mix into plastisols to try to get it to kind of recreate what that does. And then it was adjusting like things like, teas go through, they have to cure the ink. So they're going through heaters, readjusting all of that.
Yeah.
So you're like partially under curing the ink, but curing it enough to hold, but doing it so that when we want to try to like hand remove it, because everyone puts distresses on stuff,
Right.
So every shirt looks the same, and it's like
like those ones at like Urban Outfitter and stuff. It just looks run of the mill.
Yeah, you're just they're. It's just you go online and you take someone's distress pattern and that's it.
Yeah.
I didn't want that with these. I wanted them to like have that hand nature. So when we started with MADEWORN, we were like when we did all the tees for like Maxfields, we were sanding them on concrete.
Wow.
With bloody knuckles out, like literally sanding the ink to get it to break down and it looked legit, and it also, in doing that, you got the T-shirts to kind of torque and pull like the old ones. But as we grew, you couldn't just be sitting out in a parking lot on your knees all day, fucking sanding on concrete. So, I went back to Japan, spent a bunch of time there trying to because they have really amazing different distressing tools. Nothing automated worked, like no little Dremels didn't work. They have these amazing sanding machines that work great on certain fabrics, but T-shirts, because it's lighter weight, it didn't work. So came one day in an auto machine place, I grabbed a bunch of the metal brushes that you use to basically take rust off of like tailpipes and shit. And took that out on the concrete and took the like hard edge of those metal things off, and that was it. And since then, every single tee now is still sanded by hand.
Yeah, walk up, brush. You're the owner, and you're fucking working on these shirts yourself, which is like, that is like severe pride, which I love. Like, you're the fucking
it was one
owner.
of those things people were like, don't you want to keep all this shit a secret? And in the beginning, I was like, yeah, I guess we should probably keep some of our like. And then I was like, no fucking person in their right mind's going to do this,
Yeah.
It's like, you have to really like, you have to be, somewhat compulsive and this is just something I take an insane amount of pride in putting out pieces that I'm proud of, and the growth part of that gets hard because you're doing more and more of them all the time, but it's still something that like I'm out there with my guys, and you break a lot of people. We probably had 100 guys in here, or like they'll come in and they'll be like, oh man, this looks cool, can I like come in and help do this? And, after a couple hours, they're like, I'm good.
Yeah. It gets tedious.
It's a different thing. As you can see, all my fingers are taped up. We were sanding till 11 o'clock last night, and this we use sandpapers too, and no matter how calloused up your hands get, you still take off layers of skin.
It's fucking crazy, man, because the passion is just insane. Because that's the kind of passion I have for rock T-shirts. So much passion. When I walked in yesterday, you had the Dynasty shirt, Kiss Dynasty. It was the first shirt I ever owned. And of course, you seek them on eBay for a long, long time. But, now the XL is really a small in this world.
Yeah.
So when I walked in and saw it, the happiness that it gave me of like, oh my God, that's the first fucking shirt I ever had. And then when I put it on, it feels like the first shirt I ever had. It's thin, it's fucking worn out looking, and it just, and I know people listening to this, there's a lot of people out there that just go, yeah, that's fucking cool. And other people are like, these guys are lunatics. But it is something to a rock tee, man. It was that thing of wearing it at school. I went to the fucking show.
Yeah.
Back then, you couldn't buy them at the store. You either went to the show and bought a fucking shirt, or you didn't have it.
Yeah.
There was no shirts. There was no stores to go. There was no Hot Topic there. Yeah, give me number 13.
Yeah.
You had to go.
Yeah.
So it was a badge of honor. So, and I wore it till it fell apart, and now I own it again, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be critics who are like, you know, it no different than like old cars. It's like, don't remake the old car because the old car is what the old car was. And old concert tees, you know, I'm sure there's vintage guys out there that like don't necessarily love that everyone's going and redoing it, but it's like you know, you still have to have some legacy, you know. The fans want that legacy. So I'm trying to at least keep some of the, like, you know, the integrity that's brought into, you know, the artwork, and really trying to stay truly authentic to what the tees were like back then. So well, the people who may not have grown up with a lot of these bands, they get to actually get the enjoyment of it, because what's coming out today is not the same. You know, back then you had a handful of artists that probably did the bulk of the artwork. Yeah. You know, and that's why it all kind of relates and feels, you know, you immediately know an old rock tee. There's nothing else that's like it. Yeah. You know, people were printing tees back then, but rock tee had its own thing. It really did. It's almost always on a black tee, you know, and it's just that's what it was. Yep. You know, and
I think the interesting thing really is when you get into merchandise, the 70s was really fucking sleeping on merch, because if you're a collector like myself and you go on eBay and you punch in, let's say, Zeppelin, Boston, Eagles, I'm talking huge fucking bands. Yeah. There are no shirts. No. It's really weird. They weren't making fucking shirts, not until around 80, and I really think it was like Van Halen that started making lots of fucking shirts. And once you get into the 80s, all the bands had merch, right? When you went into the concert, there it was. But if you look at early Stones, early Pink Floyd, you can't find any fucking Pink Floyd shirts, even if you wanted to buy one.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, Stones... You know, that's something, obviously, because I've worked with them as long as I have. Yep. I've spent my most time basically collecting and searching for the grails out there. Yeah. Stuff from the 70s, but the bulk of it's boot.
That's what I'm saying.
Because the reality is back then, bands didn't realize that there was any money in merch. Yeah. So a lot of the guys who now run the big merch companies were bootleggers back then. Yeah. I mean, the two of the biggest guys that in the merch world that basically oversee these were 16, 17-year-old kids that were bootlegging, and the bands ironically brought them in and were like, you know, hey, why don't you sell this stuff in here? And then, you know, as time grown, there's still bands today that don't see, like, why do merch? They don't, you know, they're like, $1 million, as weird as that sounds, there's bands that are like, we don't need it. We're going to do $300 million on tour. What do we need to deal with a fucking $1 million and so forth for? And you also had a lot of bands too that, you know, you didn't have rights to their images. You know, a lot of the cool tees back then too, are the boots that have the actual images of the bands. Most of the time, those are bootlegs. Yeah. Because like someone took a picture, made the t-shirt, but the band may only own the rights to that for like the album. So you see that a lot. That's why you don't see a lot of like the actual pictures of bands on rock tees even today, because in general, most of the bands
that's crazy
don't have it.
You know, GNR, we're talking a little bit about that. You work with some of my favorite bands, of course. Recently, you did that whole display at the Tower Records on Sunset. Yeah. And you started working with GNR. They did one of the most genius things ever. That Appetite Robert Williams shirt was probably the most expensive shirt on eBay for the last 10 years. It'd go for about $350 mint. And they were so smart. They mined their past and put these shirts out. So as I walked into the first show of that tour, which is T-Mobile other than the Troubadour, I walk in, they've got the Robert Williams one. They've got the skull with the needles, you know. They've got Donington. And I'm like, oh, these guys are fucking genius, you know, because those shirts sold through the roof that night. Yeah. You know, did you have any word with them on that kind of merch? Did you say you ought to do your old shit?
No, I mean, you know, they kind of had, you know, a lot of bands have, like Stones have their tongue. Yeah. And GNR, they were smart in having that mark. I mean, they had across their heads. They had those few iconic like badges that just work.
Totally.
A lot of bands struggle with that, but GNR hit a couple of home runs with the artwork that they had that went on shirts. So it was just, it made all the sense. You know, they hadn't been out forever, so their whole thing was about coming back, 20 years later. And like, so I think every part of that tour was kind of built around the idea of like the
nostalgia
of what they were.
It was, I mean, immediately, and they were pretty smart. They were only $45, so I bought three. I got the fucking jersey with the cross. I got the Robert Williams one, and I own the originals.
Yeah.
But my original ones are absolutely falling apart now, so it's just great. I can keep those.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like, seems to be about the going rate these days on tours.
45.
It's like that $40 to $45 range. Yeah.
Now let's get a little bit about recently. Jagger wore one of your shirts. Now I know Jagger is hands on everything. Did he talk to you at all ever over the years about merch?
I mean, with the Stones, obviously working and doing their merch for as long as I have, and the catalog of designs we've done is up in the thousands.
Yeah.
For them, the couple of tees that we did for them for Coachella really sort of came last minute because with the release of their blues album, they asked if I'd do something kind of representative of the around that album so that he could wear it on stage to kind of because they really kind of announced that they were putting that out. And they'd kept that pretty secret up until that point.
Yeah,
it's like the GNR thing too. I mean, the Tower Records thing. I didn't know I was building that until 72 hours before that.
Wow.
And so I had to pull crews from like all over Hollywood to help sort of build that that crazy bar that we built there. So that seems to be kind of the common. The conversations are always like, hey, we need this. Can you pull it off? And in no time. And obviously, for the Stones, I mean, I could do anything for them. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah,
in the world to design because there's so many assets. They've done such a brilliant job over the years of retaining their assets. So you just have, as an artist, like an unlimited palette to work with.
My favorite one is that one from. I own it, of course. Jagger's birthday, 78.
Yeah, that was
Happy
amazing.
birthday on the back, Oakland. It's got the dragon, and
it's one of my favorites as well.
That's an epic shirt.
Amazing.
Now, when you're working with these bands, do you say, hey, let's make some of the classic shirts again? And are they cool with that, or do you do?
Yeah, I'm pretty much. I'm pretty much that person. I'm the one who's supplying the artwork that no one else has. And and part of my thing is building relationships so that that artwork doesn't end up in the Walmarts and things of the world.
Right.
So I'm normally the guy that's going out and finding the stuff that has not been in the market.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to, do things that aren't so like commonplace, and hopefully finding things that people haven't seen or like only people that were there were like, oh shit, there's that.
Well, this Pink Floyd one right here.
Seen. Yeah. So I try to really find the more rare. Pieces that I can tell a bit more of a story around. There's obviously always, there's the idea of like the style guide artwork. It's not really something we do too much of here. You
own all the shirts that you make a version of, right?
Yeah.
That's incredible. How many vintage shirts you own?
My vintage collection's I think up to about 15,000 now.
15,000?
Yeah.
Wow. Do you photograph them?
Yeah. So I started cataloging a couple years ago, and now I'm in the process. I'm going to self-publish like
a book,
this like encyclopedia, like alphabetic encyclopedia of like what I think the best tees are from not just my collection and cherry picking from. For some of my people that I know and other collectors that have pieces that I don't have.
You're going to do like a Toshin's book?
That style, yeah.
Yeah, that's sick.
Because no one's done the like sort of, the history of the rock tee and span across all the different genres. And so I want to do it to where it's, it comes in volumes and it's broken down so you can really kind of see the bulk of it. Because there's so many amazing ones, and I think it's something that should be cataloged because it's, there's some of those tees, there's only a couple of,
Yeah.
I mean, I have tees that like this, there's the old, like even just Woodstock, like staff tees and things.
Yeah, you got a Woodstock
I gave out to just, probably a couple of people. I got the goat soup sweater, which is super rare, and, so there's those things are the fun ones to find.
What are some of your favorites? Mine would be like Van Halen Fair Warning. That's a classic one.
Yeah.
I really loved the AC/DC Back in Black because it was just the logo on the front, and the back it was the United States with the song titles in there. I
mean, I love just the simple black on white. You know,
right?
Those ones to me, like they always just they just scream. But then there's so many, like I love old like Boston tees, like the artwork that they had for those. There's so many bands that have artwork that maybe not even have anything to do with the band.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny too. I think like the 𝐿Ze𝐬 image, like there's probably been 20 bands that have used the same. They just like drop in place, like bootleg the same like 𝐿Ze𝐬 image on the front of the shirt. But it's still amazing and it still looks right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now you also do those 70s satin concert jackets. Which are insane, man. The tour jackets, they're almost like a disco jacket, right? What is the background on those? Like, I know the Stones had them. Like,
I mean, I mostly took it from that. I mean, everyone, it was like the tour jacket.
Yeah.
So it was more like the guys who worked
the crew.
Behind this, the crew. They were crew jackets. I mean, I could be wrong, but I've never seen them where they were like sold at a concert.
No, me either.
They're almost always crew jackets.
Like there's a guy on eBay right now. He's been selling them for about a year, and if I hit the lottery, I'm buying them. He's got the 4 Zeppelin ones.
Yeah, there's a collector who, like, that's his whole thing. I think he has a Twitter account spaced on his name, but that's all he has is just all the like fish wraps, whatever we want to call them. They're like the silk tour jackets. There's not a lot.
There's not
that not that many out there. And the Stones, it's more iconic because they've been photographed wearing them, you know, which is more rare. Floyd has a great one. Zeppelin has a few killer ones.
The 4 that the guy is selling on eBay, like $15,000. That's worth it to me, man.
Like, there's some. I mean, so for me, it's another just iconic part of history is trying to make those again as sort of close to what they were.
I love that one-off merch. Like when Zeppelin played their last shows in America, Bill Graham made these Adidas sweatsuits for him.
Bill Graham was. I mean, listen,
he was a king.
I mean, that's one of my prizes. I have a pretty good collection of old Winterland, and then I have the Bill Graham middle finger from the Fillmore West.
Yeah.
He was.
He made great shit. Like I've got some of the stuff, like they had softball and basketball teams, and I've got the basketball jersey.
Yeah.
Like when a band would come to town, I got an AC/DC. It's a softball jersey, and it's from Back in Black, and it's like Bill Graham's team against them.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, he was it. I mean, he was the guy. I mean, for me, he's the guy who really put merch on the map. He's who did it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy, man. And that guy really changed the game, Like,
I mean, you still go on Wolfgang's vault, like his collection. There's still
insane
stuff, all the stuff that he has,
Yeah, that Wolfgang's vault shit, man. You see some rare shit, like some old Montrose shirts.
It's not crazy expensive either.
Nope.
That's what's amazing. Like, it's just kind of here it is, and he said, his archive's pretty amazing, and obviously all the old posters and so forth too that came out with 600-700 posters or whatever.
Yeah, the posters are nuts. Now, when you make your own T-shirt before the
we knit. Yeah, so we're 100% American made. We make everything here in Los Angeles, from knitting our own fabric all the way through sewing and washing and printing, and it's all done.
How many shirts you think you made before you finally went, this is the way it is? Like, were you making like hundreds and just going crazy?
I probably threw away 15,000 tees until we got like it right. And I'm still chasing it. Like, I still haven't like done the one where I'm like, this is it,
Really?
So I'm still like chasing and like refining and stuff. But like, even when you start washing and trying to like get it to break down the artwork right, break down the T-shirt right, you're washing with stones. It's like figuring out like what size stones, and when the stones get too sharp, they start making holes. And if you put on 100 T-shirts instead of 150 T-shirts, like what does that do? I mean, you could experiment. You could go through 10,000 T-shirts just in washes in a week, trying to figure out like the right chemistry of like, let's do this, and getting all those things right. And so all that stuff was important to me.
God, that's fucking.
But I'm still chasing it. Like,
I love you for that, man. Because who the fuck else would do that? You know what I mean? This would be a complete lost art. Yeah. And you get a guy like you that has crazy passion for it, and then you just go like, oh, fucking this. I mean, and hopefully you keep doing it because, I mean, you look around, you go, well, this guy can't be getting rich, you know, selling these shirts. Maybe.
You know, I mean, listen, this is a passion of love. This is a long-term conceptual idea. MADEWORN is really about the craft and making of things on a much larger scale. The rock parts is just an element of it.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of trying to bring back that like pride and where people are proud of what they're making, proud of what they're buying, and like good product. I mean, I could go and, you know, whore this out all day long, day after day, and people are going and just taking it and dumping it down into the lower market every day and taking what we're doing, and it's fine, but that's all their stuff is short term. You know? Yeah, they're building things that like they're like this idea of like I'm going to make $1 million in the next, like, great, but they're not. What are you going to do then?
Yeah.
You know? So
nobody's talking about it.
You know, like this is what I'm putting my name on. You know, so this is what I'm doing until, you know, I guess I can't do stuff anymore. So for me, I'm thinking 20, 30 years down the road. You know, I do this because I love doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
That's
and
genius.
like I said, I'm continuing to chase to make it better and more refined, and even, you know, so that's, you know, that drive, you know, I'm not gonna lose. You know, is there days where you're like, fuck, I don't want to sand tees anymore? Absolutely, but it's just, you know, but and maybe once I if I ever get that tail, it'll be something different. But I'm still like in hopes that I'm sitting there at that one day and sand that tee, and I'm like, this is it. This is the one we're like putting behind glass. You know?
Yeah.
Because I look back at even when we started, I'm like, damn, we were like, this is what we were putting out, you know. And I do that like now. It's like every couple of weeks, I'm like, this has got to be better, you know. So that's what keeps me going.
Wow.
I know we can do it better, and I also like the form of teaching. Like, you know, it's, you know, being able to like have, you know, guys to come in and work, and seeing them and the excitement that they have, and like teaching them. I mean, that's where, if this country's going to come back, it's going to have to work, you know. And and it's one of those things that, like, you can't do it alone, but you can do a lot, you know. So I'm hoping that, like, if nothing else, we just inspire people to like realize that they can do a lot, but you got to put in the work. There's nothing, you've been here or not, and there's nothing about this that's easy or glamorous. You got to put the work in.
You got to put the, and anything.
You have to be proud of what you're doing. So the reason I do it's because I'm proud of it. Like, I like it. I'm happy that it's put my name on it and put it out there. You know, the problem today is, you know, everyone's got like somebody that they can push it off on, you know. Yeah, and I want all the responsibility. Like, if I'm putting, like, if there's some messed up, like, then it's me. I'm not like saying it's this person over here screwing over this or this or that. Like, I think that's what we have to get back. People have to like own their stuff, you know. So for me, I'm trying to build something that I can own and be proud of, and, you know, pass that on.
Now, other than the rock t-shirts, first of all, I want to describe a little bit about your place, because to me, this is the ultimate compound where you're at here. You're in Hollywood, and it's about 4 buildings. I guess it used to be a recording studio?
Yeah, it was Draco's recording studio for like 16 years, like one of the, you know, most known, like, Latin and Puerto Rican. So it was that for, up until we took it over.
And how'd you find the building? You're just
pure luck. I mean, I was looking for space. I live on the west side, so I was rarely at that point ever even up in Hollywood. And I happened to be up here meeting a friend for breakfast on a Sunday, and drove by, and they were putting the sign up on the roof, and I owned it by the next day.
Wow!
And it was one of those, like, I was like relentless over to get.
You just walked in, you were like, "This is it."
I didn't even get to see it. I mean, I was like, I just saw the bones of it, because it was gated, and I saw the outside and the ability to build a world that we could basically do all of our aging and be outside. You know, we live in California, and like, why be inside, you know?
Yeah.
So I built, you know, this sort of wheat field in the middle of Hollywood, where we can kind of sit in this sort of magical little place that it makes it, you know, you don't feel like you're working as much, you know? It's like depressing, like, sort of place.
Yeah. It's not a warehouse downtown.
Adult Disneyland place where we could go and kind of escape from.
It's incredible. Now, in this room we're in right here is pretty much it's got some Mark Ryden stuff hung up, and it kind of reminds me of Mark Ryden's The Meat Show and stuff. Your taste and everything is exact to mine. Like I could just move in here. Like if you said, "Hey, I'm giving it up," and I won the lottery, I'd go, "Well, I'll just take it here." And this here would be my house. This part, and the other side would be like motorcycles and cars. You know, I mean, it really is. It is awesome what you have in here, man. It's like, how long have you been into like art? Like, of course, this kind of stuff. Mark Ryden, Robert Williams, Todd Shore, all that early kick-ass art. How long have you been into that?
It's funny, Mark Ryden. I started collecting. Man, it's got to be 15, 16 years ago. I mean, I'm bad with time, but
yeah.
Like owning the 𝐷𝐻𝐻𝐸, that was the painting I loved. That was like actually on my bucket list of like if I made some money, like that was what I was gonna get.
Yeah.
And I bought it back in the day for like $36,000, which was a insane amount of money. It was like all the money that I like saved up, at that time, and I was like, it came up for sale, and I was like, I'm buying it. I was like, that's like. It was like, and I was so happy that like I was able to like get that piece.
Wow. I remember Corky Ascends to Heaven was the piece I wanted.
So I had the two. So that was the choice between those two. The Corky was great because it was big.
Yeah.
It was a hard decision because I was like, man, like I can have this great big painting because most of his stuff was, smaller.
Yeah.
And that was this great like 3 foot by 4 foot painting. And I actually asked him for his opinion, and he was like, "Hey, you got it." 𝐷𝐻𝐻𝐸 is like the icon of like sort of. So that's what I ended up going with, and
that's crazy.
And then I collected him, pretty heavily over that. I mean, over many years after that, and, and became friends with him, and for me, I really loved the idea of being able to, because I obviously love history and sort of all the antiquities. I like building these worlds where you could sort of mold those two things together, contemporary art and old things, and make it feel seamless. And at that time I was getting pretty involved in like some of the museums around town, and it was just, to me, it was so departmentalized and kind of boring, and I wanted to curate space that kind of created a little bit more emotion, that sort of touched on all the senses, from scent and sound and all those things, and where you felt more encompassed into a world.
You really do.
That's what this was. I mean, I've always been in awe of like Disney's, like the thought that like at that time period that he created this world and was able to build it, and that today it hasn't really changed, and people still go by the millions to ride rides that are so outdated.
Totally.
And yet it's still like. It's still a dream to everybody. Every child that goes there, it gets bit by the drug.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like that gives me hope that like what we're doing here is not lost.
Yeah.
Technology has not replaced it. Disney is the antithesis of technology.
You're so right.
And it's the one place that people get off their ass, leave their computer, and actually go as a destination. They pay ungodly amounts of money to go to ride stuff that's archaic.
Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Just like fucking, that thing could be anywhere else, and you wouldn't give a fuck about it.
You got black lights shining on some like old paintings that glow. Yeah. And they like click clank, and like you could, I mean, any set designer today could make it a billion, but no one messes with it.
Nope.
No one's ever gone and built a theme park to compete with Disney. No. So like that's it. Like everyone, what an empire they've built.
It's crazy.
And it's all like built by hand. It's still automated, compressed air, like making everything.
Yeah,
move. And the irony is, it's like when you go through, it's a small world now. They'll occasionally put a new character, and the old stuff's so much better made.
Yeah,
it's so much cooler.
Yeah,
like the new stuff looks like it's made out of like toilet paper rolls. Yeah, I'm like, what happened to like again? It was all that care. Yeah, and you see the new ones. Like you go in, and I think it's like the guy with the cowboy hat, whatever his name is. Like they look janky compared to the stuff that was made 60 years ago there.
Yeah, like when they do the half and half on the Haunted Mansion,
Yeah, the old stuff's so much cooler.
Yeah, I miss Country Bear Jamboree, man.
Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, I'm sorry, but it without him.
Yeah, fuck that new stuff on it. Yeah.
So anyway, that to me is, it gives me all that reality of like when you go there, it's real, and again, you don't. it's all imagination, because you go there, especially when you get older, and you're like, God damn, all this shit was so much big. It seems so much bigger.
Yeah, totally.
But you still get caught up in it.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because it's all the sensories. And that's where we've lost today. We spend so much time on my phone or like so forth and so on, and you don't get all that.
You don't get experience.
You don't get experience.
Because it's just a flat screen. Yeah.
So like I know this whole virtual thing's coming, and it's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be epic, but it's still not the experience.
Nope.
It's still not there with like family, friends, whatever it is. There's still going to be that part of you that needs that nurturing. You know,
like you and I can remember the first time we ever went to Disneyland. I can't remember the first time I was on a cell phone. You know what I mean? Like, it's just all a blur now, because it's just so, every year it's the newer, you know, and all that shit. And
that's where you're talking concerts, you know.
Yeah.
There's this funny thing today where like you used to hold up a big lighter, now people are holding up their phone.
Yeah.
Instead of actually watching the concert, they're like recording the concert. And I'm like, well, then you might as well just stay home at TV.
Yeah.
Like you remember the concerts because you're there and you watch it, and it's the sound and your ears ringing after you leave, and like things you can't recreate.
Yeah.
You know, the dirt and like all the like stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because I had Baron Woolman on, and he shot Woodstock, and he also shot Zeppelin and everybody, and he said, unfortunately, I don't remember any of the concerts, because he was so engaged with shooting them. And I said, imagine that times 30,000 now. Everybody just film it. They don't even remember the concert. They're just going for the selfie to prove they were there.
Yeah.
They're not taking it in, you know? That's amazing. A famous Rolling Stone photographer said he didn't remember one concert because he was shooting it. And I was like, wow, that's the whole world now.
That is the whole world now.
Yeah.
I mean, what you just said nails it. I mean, I have a friend who does a lot of that still today. And he's like, during, you know, concert X, he's like, I like logged. He's like, I ran 6 miles with my camera just capturing the footage of all they're trying to get to the right. They don't. Yeah. They're not getting any of it. But that's a lot of people today. I mean, it's rare you see someone like not recording.
Yeah.
And it's bizarre because they're actually making sure on their screen that they're getting the right image. You might as well just watch the big jumbo screen.
Yeah.
They're like sitting in the front row, and yet they're recording the...
That's unbelievable, right?
It's like they're going to have Alzheimer's tomorrow and be like, man, I sure hope I have this video so I can remember what I saw last night.
And nobody ever watches it again.
No,
they don't go home and sit down and go, all right, let's fire up that Black Sabbath.
I can't wait to watch Stones now on my phone.
Yeah, no one watches that. It's insane.
No.
Now, you do, other than rock T-shirts, you have one wing here that has like leather jackets and boots and that kind of stuff. Now, what is that? You sell that stuff also?
Yeah, so I mean, we have ready to wear, ranging from denim through like suits and all that, but most of it's really built for clients coming in and being able to be a full tailored shop.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of costuming for film, and then, like I said, for me, I get the enjoyment out of building one-off pieces. So that being able to work with the client and do sort of the old school form of tailoring is exciting to me. Picking out the fabrics that they want, and, you know, whether they want it aged or not aged, and, you know, different time periods and so forth. It, you know, keeps it fresh. And collection today is, to me, it's just kind of a hot mess anyway. It's like, you know, you're not, no one's getting rich doing collections.
Yeah.
You know, like the big clothing companies today, it's like at the end of they're making money off of a scent or like a sweater deal they did with Macy's.
Right.
The rest of it's all just storytelling.
Wow.
So for me, you know, we create those things to tell the story, but you know, I like the actual process of, again, the intimacy with making the garment, because that to me, like, once I'm done with the garment, like I'm like, once whatever I make, you know, I don't get that attachment to it. My attachment's to the process.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy, like I'm learning every day. I mean, we throw darts at a wall every day and make mistakes all the time to like learn what things do. You know, if we put this on this, what does it do? And if we put this on this and now light it on fire, what does that do? And so forth and so on. And, you know, after doing that for years and years and years, you start to like learn, okay, let's put all these elements together and see what it does. And you know, I think we've gotten a pretty good knowledge of, you know, at least how to like make things look authentic
on aging
no matter
stuff.
what it is.
That's interesting because you worked on. I was around last year when you worked on my favorite film in the last 20 years, The Revenant.
Yeah.
Could be one of I call it a masterpiece. It really blows my mind. And while I was here, I guess you did some of the clothes for it, right?
No, we actually did books. We made
The
about
books.
600 books by hand for them. It was basically, I was brought in. Alejandro, I met with Alejandro, and he'd come to the space, and just sort of. It obviously if you being at the space, you kind of understand. I grew up in Montana. That like I have a home in the Bridger Mountains. So it was, when I was told the story of what they were going to be doing, they sort of heard about me later on into the movie. So mine was really more on the back end of what went out to like the Oscar voters and the foreign press and stuff, and like his personal things that he like gave out to the cast and stuff, because it's like that was a 10-year sort of journey of his, and they filmed for 3 years. The cinematography in that will be unrivaled forever. Yep. And when you know the actual story of it, I mean, it's hard to capture all that stuff. And people, a lot of people, even including myself, when I saw the first edit, I was like, man, this it seems some of the stuff seems a bit far-fetched, but he studied so in-depthly and his passion for what it was. And so being able to actually talk with him, and by the end of it, I had so much more understanding, respect of even just the people in that time period.
Wow.
I mean, they ended up finishing shooting that film in Argentina, and there's a tribe up there that's like hundreds of years old. It's still completely nude, and it's like sub-zero, and they live
shit.
completely nude out in that. And it's that, back then it's like you realize how like dummied down we've gotten. You've got survivalists today. They're not survivalists. Back then you didn't have any other option. Yeah. Like you're out in nowhere. You're drinking the river water that now, like, there wasn't the pollutants and things then, but everything was different. Your life expectancy was different. Everything was different. So, being able to be a part of that, and then taking the care into like making these books. So, I mean, that was probably, there's probably few things in my life that I took more passion and time into than the actual process of hand making all those. So, I mean, those actually never left this site. The binding, everything was done by hand here. Did all the daguerreotype work here. The paper alone went through like 7 stages of aging and so forth. And that was like 3 months of my life, 18 hours a day to basically.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Now those books, what was in the books? Was it the story of?
It was some of the story. It was really to kind of like, everyone always sends out swag, especially around Oscar season. Everyone's sending out their swag, trying to like get people excited. And most of it's garbage. People paying a ton of money for it. And I'm like, I saw some of the swag, and I was just like, why would you I was like, for this film, like, you got to create something that like someone never's going to want to throw away. It's like that, like, it feels like it came. I mean, every book got smoked. I mean, we put them in smokers and actually smoked them, so they had the like scent of being what it was. They had real human hair, and I mean, it was like, I wanted something that people like treasured and didn't just grab, and everyone's short attention span threw it away. I wanted people to be like, holy shit, like, everyone was unique. I mean, it's like, so everyone got something that was like a piece of art. That's what that film felt like to me. It had that care in it. So yeah, that was another one. It's like, they're like Detroit. I use Detroit a lot. We're getting ready to build a distillery in Pontiac. And Detroit obviously is the sort of, to me, the spine of the country. And it was a time period where people will, when we were making cars and people were on production lines, it wasn't about the money. Yeah. People were proud to be in this country. They were proud that they were making something. They were proud of what it was. And certain things, like, you have to put the money thing. Money's not making people happy. Like the Revenant thing, like in the end, the time period, I made 10 cents an hour. Yeah. It wasn't about that. It was about making something that made me, like, I'll never forget that experience. I'm insanely proud of what those things were. And to be a part of that film.
God, that film.
So that's a lot of what we do here too. It's like, sure, the business has to make money, but money's always going to come. If you're doing the right thing, the money's going to be there. And in a much larger scale than it's ever going to be doing these flash in the pants, one-off gimmick things.
Cash grabs.
Because those things are never your thing. Anybody who's passionate about something, it's something that they created. The people who are flashing the pants, they're stealing an idea and they're just taking it somewhere else to use. That's what I found. So most of these things that are just like these like trends and things, they're just people who are out looking and trying to be like, you know what, we can do that for 5 cents less.
Yeah.
Let's go do it and put it here.
Yeah,
and
fuck that.
We're gonna make X over, and then they're back to like trying to find that again. Like to me, like I don't know how. I don't think these people are happy.
Yeah. Oh, you've made me extremely happy, dude. When I came in here, I feel like I'm a kid in the candy store. When I went into the actual room with the T-shirts, I just started losing my mind, actually. It was almost a sensory overload because it was in my life, I've searched for the ultimate leather jacket, the ultimate fucking boots, the ultimate denim, the ultimate watch. I'm always, and I think it's passion that drives me, and I love that stuff. Like, oh my God. So when I walked in here, I was like, I can't even fucking believe this place exists. You know, and it's something I ride by every day, just meow. And then little did I know, inside there is a gold mine of rock T-shirts that will make you happy. And man, yesterday as I put this shirt on, I took a picture of it and put it on Instagram. Everybody going crazy, you know? I just think that you're a special person, man. I just think it's fucking so cool that somebody takes the time to make a rock T-shirt. You know, and I want to thank you for it, man. It's just great.
Thank you.
Where can the people get your shirts? Now, before I go any further, the shirts are pricey. There's going to be people on here that are going to be like, whoa, what the fuck? But if you look at the 20 shirts you bought over the last 10 years, and they don't mean shit to you for, let's say, 40 or 50 or even 20 a piece, if you buy one of your shirts, it's going to fucking be so next level and cool to you every time I put this on. Like, I'm going to wear this the whole week. You know what I mean? That's how I am. I put a shirt on. I'm even afraid to wear deodorant with it. I don't want it to fuck up, you know, the deodorant stay. I'm like, this thing's God.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're trying to make things that people like, you know, it becomes their favorite. You know, that's always been the idea. You don't take it off, you know?
Yeah.
Just wear it, and wear it.
Where do they get it?
You know, as you said, you know, it's a little bit price are good, and the price is really in the fact that there's no corners cut.
Yeah,
you know, and it's all done by hand. And
I seen it right here.
Yeah, so you know, eventually, you know, we're working on putting out a tee that will actually be able to work with bands to take out on tour, because that too, I think, you know, building relationships with bands and hearing. You know, a lot of them don't have much control over their merch. You know, it's you know, they hand it off to someone else, and someone else is kind of overseeing that. And most of the time, they're not very happy with the art that's out there. And so in that, you know, the fans aren't very happy either. You know, I mean, we've all gone to enough concerts, and half the time, the bootlegs are better than what's inside.
Yeah.
So for me, like, I wanted to be able to give that back to, especially the tour, and actually put out a tee that, like, you want to take home, and you're stoked on again, and you're not just buying this piece of crap that, like, you know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to, you know, it's like, again, the expense is not just to make money. The expense is in the creativity. So you can give the same tee at the $40 that's going today that is far superior to what's out there. And it's not costing anything more to make that. It's just creatively and having less hands in the pocket.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm working on that and being able to obviously give to that other. You know, this, like I said, this is, to me, is really more of an enjoyment project, and the tees are really more piece of art. They're all unique. I mean, you know, they're all sanded by hand, so it's, you know, you said it best. It's like, do you want 10 of something you don't love, or do you want one of something that?
Totally.
We live in a world of excess, and MADEWORN's not about excess.
Yeah.
You know, MADEWORN's about, like, saving up and having something that, like, you actually love and you wear all the time, instead of something that you just, you know, saw and were like, oh, cool, that's $20. Look, it's only $20. That's where we've gotten.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you love it. It's just like,
Yeah. Oh, it was only 20.
It's only 20. It's fine. Yeah, I'll just take it.
My goal is to have.
I'll wear it, but it's just, it's $20.
My goal is to have one of each. Man, that'll be my outfit. Like, I figured if I had one of each, I would never need to buy another shirt. It's funny because I've got I counted. I've got about 150 T-shirts in my house.
Yeah.
As I moved and I was washing them, I got to get rid. I lost weight and I got to get rid of all these. I want to have like 20 primo shirts and get rid of.
I own the company, and
Yeah.
I have 5 black blank MADEWORN tees, and that's all I wear. They're all holy now because it's like that's what I wear every day.
I love it.
It's like I don't. So for me, you don't need a lot.
What's this? Is this your signature? That seam that comes off?
Yeah, it's a complicated stitch. So I wanted, it was something I wanted to put on just to kind of gave us a bit of a.
I love it because there's another way I know it's your shirt.
Yeah, that definitely sets it. It's not a lot of those machines that can do that. So it's yeah.
Now you got an Instagram, and I really wish, and I would do it for you, if we could take a picture of each fucking shirt and put it on. Well, one.
We're getting ready to go live with e-commerce. So at that point,
cool.
You'll be able to actually go on the site.
Yeah.
We're gonna go live with that. And then we're also building. I'm also building it as a DIY, like a do-it-yourself website. So, in a short period of time, you'll actually be able to go on and you'll have basically a blank slate. Whether it's just like a blank jacket or a blank sweatshirt, and you'll have all kinds of things to choose from, and you can go on and custom make it however you want, and then we'll make it and send it to you.
Wow.
So I like since we're crafting everything here. I think it's fitting, at least from, let's say, social media e-commerce point, that like people can feel like they're also a part of crafting however they're doing it as well. So in the process of building that at this moment as well. So because I think that's kind of a cool little way too that people can get more involved and understand kind of what we do.
I'm looking forward to working with you on a couple shirts. I can't wait, man, because
me as well.
You're like the dream guy for me, man. Now let's give them your Instagram.
Yeah, it's just MADEWORN.
MADEWORN, and then you got a Twitter or anything, or a Facebook?
I got Facebook. Facebook's MADEWORN as well. So everything's under just straight MADEWORN.
I can't thank you enough for having me over here and doing the show, man. I just love your taste is just fucking impeccable, and everything here is just awesome. Thank you so much for doing the show. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and make sure you check them out on Instagram right away. See you guys.